I picked up this Volvo V70R last year for just $1,500 from the previous owner who was planning to scrap the car. Since then, we've done so much work to the car, bringing it far away from $1,500. A new turbocharger, intercooler piping, and all kinds of maintenance have been done to make this a fantastic example of a V70R. But the biggest problem with it was the automatic transmission. It's very comfy, but it's not so enjoyable to drive, so I've been working on 6-speed, swapping this car with a manual transmission. I pulled the engine and automatic transmission out of the car, completely overhauled the engine with all new gaskets and seals, and in the last video that I posted, I put the engine and new manual transmission back into the car and started it for the very first time. Let's go! It was a huge milestone for me, having never done a project of this complexity before, and in this video I'm so excited to get the car to a point where we can take it for the very first proper test drive and bang some gears with this new 6-speed transmission in the mountains of Los Angeles. Today is an incredibly exciting day because by the end of this video, I hope to have this car running on the ground, driving in the canyons, and there's a lot of work that needs to happen before we get to that point. These are the remaining parts to make the car work. We've got the brand new shifter cables from Volvo, which should make the shifter feel amazing. We've got to put on the beautiful HID retrofits. These are going to completely change the light output of the car. Then we've got braided brake lines because I have to bleed the clutch and brake system anyway. Then right here we've got this beautiful set of coilovers from BC Racing. Huge shout out to them, they hooked it up with a discount. But I run these on my daily driver V70 as well, and they feel fantastic. I paid full price for that set, and I would do it again if I had to because these coilovers feel fantastic. The suspension that's on the car currently, as you know, we had already changed out once, but I'm not a huge fan of how the stock struts ride on lowering springs. These tie rod ends I've been putting off for the whole series, but we're gonna get them done today. And then some stock parts that just have to go back on to make this thing work. We also have to reassemble some of the interior. The center console isn't in, the dash gauges aren't in. This bumper has to go on. I hope to respray the R bumper at some point. And the catch is that all of this has to be done by 5 p.m. tonight because I have an alignment appointment at Andy's Alignment in Glendale, which is really hard to secure an appointment at, and they're the best in the area. So I really want to meet that appointment and get this car aligned by them so that it feels fantastic. We also have to put an ECU tune on the car, but I'll get into that later. So for now, let's start with the coilovers, headlights, front end, fix up the engine bay, and get this thing on the road because I can't wait to bang some gears in my newly swapped 6-speed. We are making some excellent progress here in the garage. Up front, the BC Racing coilovers are in and they look fantastic. We've got the braided lines back here, which we still need to bleed. Up top, everything is looking quite complete. We've got the OEM covers back on. I put the heat shields back on, which I didn't film because it's not that exciting. On this side here, same thing, BC Racing coilovers and the braided lines. Everything is torqued to spec. The front end of the car looks fantastic with these new headlights. I think they look so good. They look extremely factory, and I can't wait to turn this thing on and see what the light output is like at night, because that really was a problem before, and this should fix that. Anyway, the dilemma that I'm facing now in order to get this thing driving has to do with the shifter cables. This is the set that I put in the car, and unfortunately this guy right here does not fit. Even in its locked position, the tolerance on this clip is clearly incorrect. It's too loose on there and it just pops right off, as you can see. That is supposedly locked. So I thought I'll replace those with a beautiful brand new set from Volvo, but unfortunately this cable has the exact same problem. Even though this was the correct part for the model year of car and transmission, they shouldn't have any fitment issues, but this pin also just fits way too loosely on the transmission. This means that in order to drive this car today, I have to put in this set of shifter cables, which is a really janky old set. So as you can see, I've had to re-glue the bushing there because it was completely shot. And this is far from ideal, but this style of connection is the correct one for my car, whereas this style is too large and will not fit tightly on the actual shifter forks. And that's really all I'm looking to do for now. Then we have to do the rear suspension and hopefully get it all knocked out by 5 p.m. so I can make it to my alignment. Oh, this could be good news. Okay. It turns out that this is actually removable. If we take a look at my brand new cables, this part fits in here way too loosely. That's the problem. And see, I can just pop it right out. Update, it's getting sketchy, but I found a bolt with the exact same threads. That's a nice length. I believe this might be a downpipe or some kind of exhaust bolt. We're basically gonna drill a hole through there, put that in there, and bolt it down. That is nice. The last thing that needs to be done on this car before we can drive it is brake and clutch fluids. So we're going to use the Motive Power Bleeder, which basically pressure bleeds the whole system. It's almost a must if you're doing brakes or clutch work by yourself. Unfortunately, I will not have time for my rear suspension today because of the alignment that needs to happen. That being said, they don't really align the rear anyway, unless you have a bunch of adjustable arms, which I hope to do one day in the future, but for now, the rear doesn't really need an alignment, so we're gonna go get the front aligned and do the rear shocks later, because it doesn't really matter. To use this thing right here, you just fill it up with fluid. I'm using SL6.4 brake fluid, nice high temp boiling point. You can kind of see some air bubbles coming out. We'll just let this bleed for a bit. Basically, the pressure right here is doing the work. There we go, clutch is bled, I think. On a Volvo, for some reason, you start bleeding on the front wheel closest to the ABS, closest to the reservoir. On most cars, it's the other way around. There comes the fluid. Basically, now I'll just wait for the color of this fluid up here to turn nice and clear or bright yellow, the same color as the fluid that came out. And then we'll close this valve down here. Another strange thing is that they've actually got 2 bleed screws on these calipers, so we're gonna crack this one open as well and bleed out the fluid. Come on, fluid. Where are you? There we go. It was blocked. We'll let this guy bleed until the fluid turns bright yellow as well. I can't believe it's happening. On the actual ground. It's been a really long day, but I'm not done yet. This engine has never sounded so smooth and quiet. Look at those beautiful headlights. One thing I completely forgot was a shift knob. All I have is this really dirty one. We'll go for that for now. There it is. This clutch is stiff, but let's try the very first. Oh. The car just rolled under its own power. I'm at a loss for words. No leaks coming from the car. It's idling incredibly smooth, and it's time to turn off the lights and head out of here. I have my little emergency kit packed up. I'm gonna leave the garage an absolute wreck. All right, here we go. First gear, smooth. There's second, fourth, ready? We're doing it, baby. Oh, I forgot how good this thing sounds. Oh, it might be down on boost. The alignment from Andy's felt absolutely incredible. We dialed in some camber in the front to try and match the rear a little bit more, and I'm so happy with the work that they do. With that being said, the more I drove the car just to and from the alignment shop, the more it started running terrible. Now, there was a lot of factors at play here. It was on the automatic transmission tune still, but I knew from the way that it was running that something was going on beyond that, because it was just running that poorly. It would start breaking up and it sounded like rolling two-step. The car is running like garbage right now.
Car's a 4-cylinder.
Yeah, we did a cylinder delete. Yeah, bro, it's a fuel economy thing. It turns into a 4-cylinder. Kind of sounds sick missing one cylinder. It's better at being a Honda than Hondas are. It felt like this car was so close to being done with it all back together and actually moving under its own power now with the manual transmission, but this was just another small hurdle to overcome before I could finally drive this thing up in the canyons. The sound that you were hearing is actually unburnt fuel hitting the exhaust manifold, so we had a spark issue in one of the cylinders, and I confirmed this by going into VIDA and seeing the misfire on cylinder number 3, and it's also warning me for catalyst damage, which can happen when too much unburnt fuel hits your exhaust manifold. To diagnose this, I had to remove the intake piping once again to get to all the coil packs and spark plugs to get a better look at what was going on with our ignition system. I moved the spark plug from cylinder 3, which is where the misfire was, to cylinder 4, and I moved the coil pack from cylinder 3 to cylinder 5. So if it stays on cylinder 3, we know it's an injector or compression or something. If it's cylinder 4, we know it's a spark plug. If it moves to cylinder 5, we know it's a coil pack. All right, I've got my misfire counters up on the screen, so now we're gonna start the car and see what happens. Cylinder 4. I headed to AutoZone to pick up a new set of spark plugs because based on the diagnosis, the misfire moved from cylinder number 3 to cylinder number 4, which is the direction that I moved the spark plug. So I picked up a full matching NGK set and started swapping them over to see if this got rid of our rough running issues. Let's go! The spark plugs made a world of difference. The car ran so much smoother and our rolling two-step ignition cut was now gone. The car was running properly again, and although it was low on boost, I imagined that this was probably a tune thing because the current engine computer thinks that the automatic transmission probably exploded or something. So I headed to a car meet of all places to meet up with my buddy Ryan, who has the proper laptop, and I flashed a tune on from Alex Saunders. This is the correct ECU tune for a manual transmission car, and in addition to that, it's also a stage 1 tune, which means it should improve the response and take advantage of the upgraded intercooler and piping that we put on in a previous video. We successfully flashed the ECU tune on, and now it was time for a proper drive of the car. I can't believe it's happening, but I'm finally driving my manual swapped V70R. Look at this. Downshifts whenever I want. Let me start by saying this is exactly what I wanted out of the car. It feels fantastic and I couldn't be happier with it. To celebrate the occasion, let me pull over real quick so I can unbuckle this and show you some merch that I finally made to celebrate the completion of the manual swap project. It's an embroidered graphic of the V70R that says Spaceball under it. Oh my God. This thing feels so good. I'm so happy I took on this project because this definitely pushed my comfort zone as far as what I was capable of mechanically. This was a huge undertaking for me. I've never done any project remotely of this size, and at the end of it, it's just that much more rewarding, taking on something that I knew was bigger than my skill set, and just diving right in and figuring it out taught me so much, and I feel so much more confident tackling the next project on whatever car it might be. So first of all is the tune by Alex Saunders, and I know what a stock manual R felt like because I owned an S60R, and the tune that I got from Alex Saunders was a stage 1 tune, which is basically stock boost levels, but the drivability has been completely changed. The response to boost, the response to throttle input. So a huge shout out to Alex. He's incredibly helpful and made tuning this thing incredibly easy. Ooh, that was a loud one. The next thing to talk about is the clutch. I put in the stage 1 single disc X clutch and it feels really, really good. It's a lot heavier than factory, but the range of engagement is incredibly smooth and it's really nice to drive on a daily basis as long as you don't mind the heavier pedal. Another big change was the BC Racing coilovers. They feel really nice as well. I would say the ride compliance is better than the 4C suspension with lowering springs that I had on there before, and so is the handling. It almost gets rid of the need for the active suspension because it's more comfortable than comfort mode is, and it's more advanced and responsive than advanced was. Another thing to talk about, I guess, is the shifters. I put Delrin bushings in the shifter mount, and I also put those OEM shifter cables in it, which were brand new, and all of that made the shifting experience the best that I've felt in any Volvo. I have actually bought another project car already because I feel that this one is coming to a close and I want to keep the channel going because I'm really enjoying it. It's a Japanese 2-door sports car and it was abandoned for 4 years. So look out for that at some point in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you for supporting the channel. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.